this matchup, two top teams in the country getting ready to play. Thank goodness it's at our place. We get to come home and play. Night game, should be an electric atmosphere. It is every time we play them. They've got a tremendous team. Josh has done an unbelievable job with this team. They're playing at a high level. Just got through watching a bunch of their special teams, and I always say you can tell the character of a team and how good a team is, how hard they play by their special teams, and they play really hard. Defense, offense. I think they're top in the conference, maybe top 3, top 2 in almost every category on offense and defense. Which, as you know, that was what we faced last week. They were pretty high in both, but this team is playing defense at an extremely high level, and they have an extremely explosive offense and extremely physical offense. So it's a great test. Nico's playing really well in terms of athleticism, and he's got a great arm talent. As you sit down and watch games, you start to realize how good this team is and how well they've played. So they've got a tremendous football team, and we've got a tremendous football team. And it's going to be a great opportunity for these two to go play and square off in what's a pivotal matchup. I mean, it's going to be a great matchup at night at our place and on a national stage. So it's what you come to Georgia to play in, and it seems like we have been in a bunch of these type games, especially this year. So we've got to get our team prepared as coaches to play their best game, and they got a great team.
Open it up for questions.
Yeah, Kirby, last week you heard Lane kind of openly address that game as a de facto playoff game. Is that the kind of approach that you consider taking with your team this week?
I don't ever take those approaches. I don't think they're the right way to go about things. I think you're trying to win your conference all the time, you know, and to do that, you got to win your games at home. You got to play well on the road, which we have and haven't. We've done both, but I like making it about who we play and how we play, and less about just outcomes.
Coach, I understand a lot of offensive game plan. Is dictated by the strengths and weaknesses of the defense you're playing. That being said, is there anything you'd like to try and change about the offensive approach of your team these last 3 games starting Saturday night?
Execution would be the biggest thing. I feel like there's been a couple, you call them wasted plays or wasted drives, where we have a stupid penalty, we have a good play with a negative play with a penalty, and you start kind of backed up and screw things up. We haven't had a lot of great field position the last couple games where we have had some unfortunate things with special teams that have happened, but be more efficient is the most important thing, and that's our biggest struggle, is staying ahead of the chains for third downs and putting together drives where we don't have turnovers. And at the end of the day, you have 2 to 3 turnovers a game, more than the other team. You're not going to win a lot of games if you have that many more turnovers than them.
Harry, you talked after the game about the injuries you guys are dealing with on the offensive line. In a game week like this with Tennessee, how do you sort of strike that balance and trying to get those guys healthy, but at the same time getting ready for a big opponent on Saturday?
Well, you go with what the medical people give you. You know what I mean? If a guy's healthy enough to practice, he practices. If he's not, then he doesn't. So I go at the recommendation of the tremendous training staff we have. Those kids want to practice. They want to go out there and do it. And sometimes they can. Sometimes they can do certain things and they can't do others. I defer to those guys. And most of the time, especially on your offensive line, it's like the toughest unit you have. So they're going to give you everything they've got. And they want to go out there and practice and play. But in some cases they can, some cases they can't.
Yeah, what have you seen out of Ernest Green this year and how he's developed as a player?
Yeah, Ernest is number one. He plays the hardest position in all of football, which is the left tackle position. I think he's done really well. We've rolled some there, and Monroe spells him sometimes. Ernest has been dealing with an injury, a really tough injury to manage. He has burners. He's gotten some stingers and burners over there on his shoulder. So even he last week was limited in how much reps he could get in practice. So for him, he's frustrated because right now he's trying to improve and get better, and sometimes you can't do that when you can't practice every single day and you can't go out there and maybe bang and compete like you want to. But for a guy that's played left tackle for really 2 years in major college football, and he's been part of an offensive line that has done a great job protecting the quarterback over the course of 2 years.
Coach over here, how much similarity do you see between what Ole Miss and Tennessee does on offense and Kentucky Week specifically at the quarterback position?
Not real similar. Two different offenses.
Kirby, having a chance to go back and watch the film from Ole Miss, can you give us an assessment of how you feel your offensive line performed?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of plays where we blocked really talented, good players, and we were able to run the ball at times effectively against a really talented defense. There were others where we didn't block them, and our backs made some extremely, really good plays. I mean, I thought Trevor and Nate had some of their best runs of the year, considering what the blocking was or what we got done up front. And then you go to the pass game, and there were times we blocked them and times we didn't. And at the end of the day, when you play from behind and a team can rush the passer like they do, their number one is elite. Prince is an elite rusher. He did not play against LSU. LSU threw the ball like 50 times in that game. You got to wonder, if that guy's out there for 50 passes, does he have an impact on the game? He did not. He had an impact on our game for sure, and he does a really good job. But our guys I'm completely confident in our offensive line. I think our offensive line it's got a good offensive line. We can't put them in a harm's way. And when you play on the road, guys, there's not a guy in this room that's lined up at left tackle with 80,000 people screaming at the top of their lungs, and he knows it's a pass. He gets a distinct 0.5 advantage, and 0.5 is a lot. Trust me, I know from coaching this league, it's hard to do. You got to find ways to help people. You got to be able to run the ball to slow it down, and you got to help them out some.
Yeah, Kirby, when it comes to the quarterback position, how do you as a coach decide what the guy at that position needs to hear when he's going through adversity? Specifically with Carson, I guess, what does he need to hear in those moments, and how does he compare to some of the quarterbacks you've had in the past?
Well, there's need to hear, and then there's need to reaffirm what's true. What's the actual truth? Because we don't deal in narratives and themes and what people say and social media fodder and what you guys think. We deal in truths, and the truth is what we usually say. Tell them, that's a good decision, that's a poor decision, that's a good drop, that's a bad drop, that's a good protection of the ball. If you're going to take a sack, that's a poor protection of the ball. We deal in truths, and we don't go much past that.
Obviously, speaking of truths, obviously passing the ball and turnovers and run game have all been issues with the offensive line. Is there an option that you have at quarterback, whether there's somebody that could be more of a running threat, or would you consider, or have y'all considered, like a change either temporarily in game?
Absolutely not. We've got the quarterback we've got who's completely competent, capable, and understanding of our system, and gives us the best chance to win.
Kirby, from a big picture perspective, not just the Ole Miss game, what are the main reasons you think the offense hasn't been as productive this season?
Well, we played really good defenses. So you guys will look at a stat sheet and you'll say, where do they rank? And I'll say, well, against who? Because relative to who we've played some really good teams. But I would be remiss if I would say that we're happy with where we are. We're not happy with where we are. We've played some really good defenses, I think, this year, more than most people in terms of their schedule. And when you look at the in SEC games, the ones that matter the most, SEC versus SEC, and you look at all those, it's not as glaring as a difference because there's some really good defenses in our league in terms of what you play against. But we want to be more productive. We want to be able to throw the ball vertical down the field. We want to be able to shoot and play action. Play action set up off of your backs and off of your ability to run the ball. In some games, we have been able to run the ball better than others. In some games, we've been able to drop back pass better than others. But regardless of those two things, you must protect the ball. And we have not done that. And that's the key to the drill. If you don't turn the ball over, guys, you're going to have a chance to win. And then the flip side of that is you got to get turnovers. So where are our strip outs? Where are our rip outs? Where are our takeaways, I would say? Because to win turnover margin, it's a two-way street. It's not just a one-way street.
Coach, last week, Colby Young was accused or recanted her story. What is the situation with him now as far as him being in the football team?
The legal process has got to play itself out. Look, we want to support Colby where we can. We'll continue to provide him with access to our facilities and the support resources we have, whether that's ranking, the training room, mental health, the weight room, but the legal process has to play itself out before we can do it.
Kirby, there's a video on social media of Jake Pope seemingly celebrating with some Ole Miss fans on the field after the game. Just wanted to see if you had seen that and what your reaction to it was.
Yeah, what an idiot. I mean, just stupid. I didn't see it till today, but he's embarrassed about it. He's upset about it. That's obviously a childhood friend of his. He grew up, played with there at Buford, and knows him. Hadn't seen him in forever, but just not real smart. But to be honest with you, I don't have time to waste energy on that. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like my focus is on Tennessee. I'm not worried about that.
I realize all coaches continue to recruit players who have given verbal commitments, but I'm wondering, you know, we've had a couple of years with NIL. How has that affected? Has it turned up the intensity of efforts to flip players, and do you have any concerns as you've seen that develop?
I don't understand what you're asking. You're saying worried about our commitments or worried about other people's commitments? What are we talking about?
Just in general, the process of how NIL affects, you know, are you concerned about bidding wars develop? And
I've been worried about people committed to us before NIL. You know what I'm saying? Like there's no commitment that is done until it's signed. You know what I mean? And now, even when they're signed, they're not done. So like that. I don't know that if you're trying to make it about NIL causes this. I can't say that because it was that way before NIL.
Yeah, Kirby, Tennessee's got one of the top pass rushes in the country. What stands out to you about the way they get after quarterback and how effective they are?
They're extremely disruptive with 4 people. They don't have to add in. They do pressure and they pressure well, but they don't have to. They get after people with 4 guys rushing. They 2 platoon, play a lot of guys. They got elite rushers on the edge, which we all know about. But you know, nobody talks about how hard they play internally. I think Coach Garner's done a tremendous job with the physicality they play with across the board on the defensive line is tremendous, and they play really hard.
Kirby, you often talk about the rigors of the SEC schedule, and without divisions this year, there's kind of a logjam of a lot of mathematical possibilities of who can still get to the SEC title game. And you're wrapping up your SEC schedule. Is it more competitive than years past? Is there more parity? If so, why? Just your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think statistics say there's more parity. I mean, just looking at the sheer differentials in games, looking at the matchups, looking at the number of teams that are still in it. Some of that's because of the non-divisions. It brings everybody into it. But there's a lot of good football teams, and it's a war of attrition. It's like I've talked about all year, it's an emotional roller coaster that you don't want to be a part of. You want to navigate this thing with a long-term mindset in your approach to it. And there's a lot of good football teams out there, and there's a lot of good games left to be played. There's a lot of good teams left to play games.
Yeah, you talk about Carson getting in the right place, things like that. How do you feel, I guess, he and the O-line are doing in terms of communicating, protection checks, things like that? How has that continued to evolve over the course of the season with obviously offensive line shuffling, Jared playing center, things like that?
Protection checks, he's elite at. He does a great job. He's really smart. He does an awesome job. That communication there's no communication issue there. So if anything, it's blocking. You know what I mean? Like you got to go physically block them and get them blocked. It's not a communication. It's you know, one-on-one. I mean, same way our guys beat people at times, one-on-one pass rush. You know, sometimes you get beat, and it's usually not a communication error for us.
Have time for one more question?
Yeah, where or what areas have you guys as a team gotten better since the bye week?
Well, I would say the tackling on defense was a big deal for us, and at times we've shown the ability to prove. I don't know which bye week you're referencing. I guess you're talking about the last one.
Since after the Texas game.
Yeah, after the Texas game. So we worked really hard on some protection things that we wanted to do differently on offense. We've been able to utilize some of those. Some of those were in the Florida game, not necessarily in the Ole Miss game where we were in a little bit more pass-happy situation. But I thought that Nate Frazier's improved a lot during that time. He's gotten better. I think special teams wise, we've added a few wrinkles. We've changed a couple things schematically, defensively that we're doing different. So the improvement is not seen sometimes in 2 games. It's seen over a course of time, and it's a continuum, right? It's not like we're saying, okay, it's this jump. It's like every practice we have since the bye week, we've had, I don't know, not 14, but 14 days. We've had a lot of practices where the improvement for us is these younger players that have gotten more reps and continue to get better. Unfortunately, sometimes they don't get to play because the games we've been in have been a lot tighter. Thanks.